here too, cause I guess if it's picking, oh, there's Blake. Hey, Blake. Listen, not worried about it. If it doesn't work, oh, thank you, Blake. Thank you. You know, a 30-minute delay to be able to fix things is not a bad thing at all. So, all right, it's 6 o'clock, and so I guess there are perhaps people watching online, and if you are, we're grateful to have you with us. Those of you who may not know who I am Robin Lindsey. I am the interim senior pastor here, and I am a former senior pastor here. I was here from 2009 to 2016, and in this beloved church and in this beautiful chapel, which is always, I used to come in here and sit and look at the glass and let it envelop me very much so. Let's begin with prayer. Precious Lord, we thank you for the beauty of this chapel. We thank you for the rain today, Lord. Knocked a little pollen out of the air. That's always kind of nice. We know it's going to come back, and we want it to come back because we want a beautiful spring. And now it is spring. Hopefully the cold weather is over with, and we're able to move forward into a beautiful time of recreation. And for us as a church, a time of recreation as well. Lord, tonight we're going to look at St. Matthew and his writings about our Lord. We ask, O Lord, that you would give us wisdom and insight, and that our hearts might be open to hear what the Spirit is saying to the churches. These things we offer in the name of Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. I am sure there are prayers on your heart that you need to share in your heart. There's always a good time for that. Last week, I shared with you that we did last week and this week as a unit, and we're doing the Beatitudes. And then we're going to have, next week is the Easter egg hunt. Then the week after that is spring break. It's also Holy Week, by the way, so we will have Maundy, Thursday services. And then the following week, we will begin 3 weeks that will conclude our time on Wednesday nights for the season, as is done each year. The Beatitudes are part of the Sermon on the Mount, as I said last week. It's Matthew 5, 6, and 7. Probably was not preached all as a single unit like that, but it's there for us. Matthew kind of groups Jesus' teachings in packages for us. And so if you got a red letter Bible, it's real easy to find them because you flip through Matthew. Others scatter them out a little bit more. But Matthew, we've always called a teaching gospel for that reason, because he brings things together. The Sermon on the Mount, the Beatitudes, is the first 12 verses, and we're going to start with the verse 7, but we're going to read them all. We just need to hear them. You need to hear them in that rhythm in which our Lord shared them. When Jesus sat down, saw the crowds, he went up the mountain, and after he sat down, his disciples came to him. Then he began to speak and taught them, saying, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they will receive mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called the children of God. Blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you when people revile you and persecute you and utter all kinds of evil against you falsely on my account. Rejoice and be glad, for your reward is great in heaven, for in the same way they persecuted the prophets who were before you. May the Lord bless this reading and hearing of his most holy word. Let's start with this verse 7. It's a powerful one. It's one that is irritating. It's challenging. It's demanding. Blessed are the merciful, for they will receive mercy. It's just like the Lord's Prayer. The Lord's Prayer has this little blip in it that we just roll right over with our tongues and don't even realize what we're saying. In fact, why don't we say the Lord's Prayer together right now, and let's roll across that and then come back to it. Will you join me in prayer? Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever. Amen. And forgive us our trespasses as we have forgiven those who trespass against us. Nobody even realizes what we're saying there. Let me put it in a little more blunt English. Lord God, I want you to forgive me up unto the extent and no more than I forgive people who have hurt me. So if I don't forgive, Lord, then I do not want you to forgive me. That's what we pray every single time we pray the Lord's Prayer. There are times I've been tempted to skip that phrase because it bites. It's where we're actually saying to God, not I want your mercy, but we're actually saying to God, I want you to limit your mercy to that which you see in me. Oh, Lord, could have phrased that differently. Jesus says, I want you to know that blessed are the merciful, for they receive mercy. So that's how you receive mercy. You offer mercy. That puts you in line for receiving mercy. Now, Jesus, of course, did not speak in Greek. This St. Matthew wrote in Greek. Matthew was a Jew. His native language was Aramaic, and common everyday language is Aramaic. His language in the temple and in the synagogue was Hebrew. But he wrote in Greek because the New Testament was written for all those people out there, and most of the eastern part of the Roman Empire spoke Greek. So he used that word eleison, which is mercy. In fact, you know that little song, those of you who are music inclined, Kyrie eleison, which is Kyrie is Lord, Lord have mercy on me. But that's not what Jesus said, because that's not an Aramaic word. The Hebrew and Aramaic word he would have said is you kind of have to clear your throat at the beginning, and then you say the word. It's pronounced chesed. And it is a magnificent word. You will find it in the Psalter, in the Psalms, a number of places. It's often translated mercy, but it can be translated other things as well. and you may not see the word there that is being there. But what we need to know is that chesed is this magnificent word that has such great meaning. You find it in Micah 6:8, which is, what does the Lord require of us? But to do justice, to love mercy, chesed, and to walk humbly with our God. And sometimes translated love kindness, chesed, and walk humbly with our God. But what the word means is not just that we feel sorry for somebody. See, sometimes we think of mercy and forgiveness and all that stuff is, oh, well, we're Southerners, so we can say it. Bless their hearts. Chesed means get into their body and experience what they're experiencing. It means for you and me, when we want to pass judgment on someone, the old walk a mile in my shoes before you say that about me. Now it is deeper than that. It is get all the way in. Get into my life. Lord, help me to get into somebody's life so that I can then see the world through their eyes. Help me to understand what it means to be an abused child. Help me to be able to see the world as an abused child so that I can understand the pain that they are experiencing. For people that society has decided to give harsh judgments to and to condemn and ostracize, it means, Lord, help me to understand what it would be like if I felt like them and I was them and I was the one being ostracized. I was the one being judged. I was the one being pushed out of the way saying, you're not welcome. This is the mercy that we're talking about. William Barclay says there's only one person where we can completely say, hate the sin, love the sinner. He said, when we say that to other people, we don't mean it. He said, but we do mean it when we look in the mirror. When we look in the mirror and we see what we've done wrong, we can say, Lord, I'm horrified that I did that. I didn't mean it to be that way. I didn't mean for it to come out that way. I learned that the hard way. I learned not just at Dalton, but I learned at McEachern. And I guess I first started sending emails when I was at Eatonton. I learned to sit 24 hours on an email before I responded to it. And I learned it because I didn't do that one time. I got this email and it ticked me off up one side and down the other, and I slammed that computer keyboard down and I ripped off an email and I hit send. And the moment I hit send, I said, Lord Jesus, break the system and stop it. Which it did. He did not do, and it went through. God had said to me, the moment I hit it, why didn't you stop and listen to me first, Robin? Yes, what they said was inappropriate and wrong. But did you stop for a moment and try to get right where they are? Not to justify their actions. Wrong actions are wrong actions, but just to help you understand those actions in such a way that you can then be what you claim to be, which is a mature Christian pastor. And that garbage you just sent, Robin, doesn't qualify as a mature Christian pastor. And I was chastised right much. And of course the chastisement didn't stop because this person showed it to everybody they saw. And people looked and said, well, I knew Robin disagreed with you, but boy, I didn't know that. It was too much. We got a little 2.5-year-old granddaughter, and she always is walking around. She wants to carry everything. And she says, too heavy. And I'm like, well, why are you picking it up? Just put it down. It doesn't need to move. And she looks at me and she just says, too heavy. I was too heavy that day. I should have just put it down and not tried to move it with my emotions. So what helps us with an understanding of blessed are the merciful is that when I look in the mirror and I forgive myself for having made an error and done something wrong, and I still love myself, and I knew that really doesn't totally define who I am. Unfortunately, it partially defines who I am because I did do it, but it doesn't totally define who I am. So Jesus says to us, blessed are the merciful, for they shall receive mercy. God understands where we are. God understands how we feel. Remember, that's the whole purpose of the incarnation. Jesus became enfleshed. God became in flesh so that God could experience, as the book of Hebrews says, God could experience all that we experience. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall receive mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Wow, let me just be confessional. I've become cynical. I don't trust anybody or anything anymore, hardly. I read something and I'm like, what are they really saying? I told my heart doctor today, because I got a decent report. I got a good report. I actually got a good report. Kathy would say, tell him, Robin, you got a good report. I got a good report. I said, Dr. Patel, I appreciate the fact that you don't play games with me. You just tell me how you feel. You don't make it worse. You don't make it better. You just tell me what you see in your diagnosis. And he says, well, I try to do that, Robin. And I don't have to, with him, look behind the motives. When I see my grandchildren now, and I'm like any other grandparent, they've finally kind of become, I'm going to get obnoxious about them before it's over with. I know it. If you've got grandchildren, you ought to give me some slack. Remember, blessed are the merciful, so they shall receive mercy. You know, cut me some slack. I'm a new granddaddy, 2.5 years with this little girl and 14 months with little Booba, as we call him, little Jaden. And I see their innocence. Although that 2.5-year-old's getting sneaky, let me tell you right now. So they learn quick, don't they? But they trust me completely. They trust me so much, it scares me that they trust me so much. I could say anything to them and they would accept it as gospel fact. So I have to be careful because I'm a preacher and I'm prone to hyperbole. I'm prone to overstatements. I'm prone to say, well, that's the worst thing in the world. Or that's the best thing in the world. And all of that works well with adults who can translate that. It does not work well with literal children who say, okay, that's the best thing in the world. So nothing else is good except that. And that's the worst thing in the world, so there's nothing worse than that right there. And I have to remember that whether I'm talking about a bug they found on the rug, or for Booba, he's always got something in his mouth that he's found. And I'm always digging my finger in his mouth and he bites, pulling it out, seeing if it's edible. If it is, I stick it back in, and if it's not, I take it away. Sometimes it's a Cheerio he's found on the floor, and it's all right. It's a little dusty, but you can eat it. Sometimes it's a piece of plastic, and I'm like, well, we thought we'd proofed this room, but we didn't get everything. But the pure in heart is that we have become so sophisticated, so analytical, that it's hard for us just to walk in and accept something as is. We need to see Christ that way. We're always trying to twist Christ into what we want Christ to look like. And ironically, when we do that, he always looks exactly like us. Whether it's some picture where he's got light brown hair, which there's no way on God's green earth he had light brown hair, or blue eyes, and there's no way on God's green earth he had blue eyes, or we begin to see that which we wish were true and put it into words and attach it to him. Our purity of heart must be an innocence. Remember, Jesus said if you're going to enter the kingdom of God, you got to enter it as a child. I always think about that because I think about we adults, usually what we want is, well, children make me nervous. I get a little noisy. I get distracted. We kind of move the children off to the side. And when the disciples were doing that, remember what Jesus did? Jesus said, no, you bring those kids right down front and you put them front and center. And let me tell you, if you want to know how to walk into the kingdom of God and actually see the kingdom of God, you've got to enter it as a child. We got to enter with open hearts. We got to enter with open minds rather than only seeking to see what we want to see. And that's hard. And that means we have to constantly reevaluate ourselves. Someone said, Jesus is the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow. I said, yes, you're right. But I'm not. Hopefully, I'm worse, better, and going to be better yet. Rather than me, well, this is where the position I took, and I'm going to stand on it forever, rather than grow and mature. That's so critically important when we talk about it. So in our purity of heart, we've got to see beyond. We really need to see people's hearts and let our hearts be seen. That means sometimes you got to walk in where it's muddy and where things are not simple. More than one person has said, Christianity is a messy religion. Following Jesus is messy because we don't always agree. Remember that 40,000 denominations, 300 groups? But if we want to see God, we have got to open our hearts and try to strain out as much as we can. We won't be able to do it all. I think, as St. Paul says, we'll always see in that glass darkly while we're here on this earth. And we won't see it clearly till we see the Lord face to face. But surely with the help of the Holy Spirit, we can strain some of that out of our hearts and be able to see with a pure heart and be able to get glimpses of God, glimpses of the kingdom of God. It's perfect. I saw a glimpse of the kingdom of God with that little girl. She bopped her brother on the head the other day, as she was prone to do. And I said, all right, Izzy, you got to have 3 minutes of time out. And she said, no, Papa. I said, yes, Izzy. No, Papa. Yes, Izzy. So I said, look, I'll sit with you. And so I sat down with her in the little timeout place, and I measured 3 minutes. We talked the whole time. But halfway through, she looked at me and she said, I don't love you. And she turned her back to me. And I said, that's all right, Izzy. I got enough love for both of us. But when her 3 minutes were up, she grabbed my hand and she began to kiss the back of my hand. I would have given her the universe at that moment. And unfortunately, she's going to figure that out one day. But the purity of her heart, she was mad at Papa, and then she was fully, completely, absolutely, adoringly back in love with him. Blessed are the peacemakers, so they shall be called the children of God. Not blessed are people that are peaceful. Not blessed are people that are peaceful. Peacemakers, people who create peace where they go. Now, that's a sticky one because peace can look different in different circumstances. Sometimes peace will not always look peaceful. If I walk into a situation where someone is being abused, to create peace, I have to interrupt that abuse, which may not look peaceful, but is peacemaking. It creates peace. So I want you to see the complexity. Sometimes the gospel is simple and sometimes it's complex. And when it's complex, if we simplify it, we destroy that complexity. But there are other times when it's quite simple, but we have to be open to the Holy Spirit guiding us in that. And blessed are the peacemakers is a moment when someone is coming in trying to bring calm. That's why I'm here. I mean, I don't know if it works or not. And I know that I probably have created some issues. Whenever somebody comes back, they create some kind of issues. But one of the things they said to me when they called me, said, we'd like for you to come back to Dalton. I said, no. I'm in Cedartown. Well, Robin, we need you to come back to Dalton. Why? Because, Robin, we think you can help calm things down. Because we know that people trust you. What was being asked of me was, will you be a peacemaker? Robin, we don't really need you to come in and stir up a bunch of stuff. What we need you to do is bring some peace. So can you be a peacemaker was what was asked of me. Well, Kathy will tell you, I'm not always a peacemaker. Most of the time I am. I'm a pretty decent guy. But every once in a while I'm not. And I make boo-boos. I make mistakes. And I know I'm going to eventually make a mistake during my time here. And when I do, it's not going to make for peace. And it's going to break my heart. And I'm going to have to ask for forgiveness. But it's just there. I'm not perfect. Some of y'all got some selective memories. I want to tell you, well, when you say it was so great while I was here, let me tell you about this happened and this happened and this. Do you remember this happening? Yeah. Man, we didn't all feel so great then, did we? No. Okay. No selective memories. Let's be honest. But let's become peacemakers. In this world, in politics, I mean, let's just jump to secular politics. We need some peacemakers. Everybody seems to think the best way to convert your neighbor is stick a sword through them and skewer them. That never converted me, by the way. We tried that. We tried that in Spain during the Spanish Inquisition. It did not turn out well. Yes, we had a bunch of conversions because we put a sword on their neck and said, you either convert or die. Some chose to die, but a good number said, I believe. But that does not create peace. If you're forced to sit there. It's not peace. I want us to find peace. I used to tease my mother without mercy, and I think when my mother died, she had a conversation with God, and they have decided to be against me because I can't sleep. I used to laugh as a 16, 17-year-old. Mom said, well, I couldn't sleep last night. I said, oh, you can't sleep, old woman. I quit saying that real quick, let me tell you that. And I said, Mom, all you have to do is close your eyes. You go to sleep. All you have to do is get tired. I used the word of hers. If you get tired enough, you go to sleep. She said, well, I thought that, Robin, but it doesn't work anymore. And now when I'm concerned about one of our kids or one of the grandkids or mainly our kids, nobody told me that adult children were that were not worry-free. See, I thought if you got them through the teenage years, then you didn't have to think about them anymore. And you could just let it be, but I found out that it doesn't work that way, that I worry about them more at 45, 44, and 41 than I did when they were 14 and 11. Because I love them that much. And I want peace for me, but I want peace for y'all too. I want you to be able to go to sleep and not be worrying about the church or what's going to happen. I want you to know we're going to be all right. No, that's not true. That's a lie. We are all right. Right this moment. Right this second. Right this absolute moment of time, we are all right. Nothing else has to happen to make us all right. So we can be at peace with that. Doesn't mean we're not going to work. We got a lot of work to do. Got all kinds of plans and ideas and thoughts, and there's meetings going on. And yesterday I was here for 9 hours, and I had only 20 minutes when I didn't have myself in a meeting, which was fine. I mean, that's what I'm here for, to be here and kind of. But we're planning all kinds of stuff. But even as we're planning, I want us to know it's all right. We're already at peace. We're fine. It's all right. We went through the crisis. That part of the crisis is over. Does that mean there's not going to be other crises? No, of course not. I'm not ignorant. But I want us to know we're all right. And I want us to feel that. I want to be able to sleep well and not worry. I want you to be able to sleep well and not worry. I want us to feel the presence of Christ. I want us to not only be peacemakers, but I want us to be called the children of God in this community. Newspaper from Chattanooga called the other day. I didn't call them back. I know they want to get both sides of a story. But I don't want to accidentally say something controversial or have it misstated, not on purpose. I don't think anybody would do that on purpose, but just kind of reading between the lines incorrectly. So I decided, well, we don't need a newspaper article. Somebody else wants to write one, fine. But I don't need to write one. We just need to be the Church of Jesus Christ and be at peace. And we need to offer peace and make peace. And there are ways to do that. Blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. By the way, let me just go ahead and say it. The Christian church in America is not persecuted. I'm sorry, I know people think they are, and sometimes we may think we are, but we're not. Christian church is persecuted in Indonesia and in Pakistan and in other places, but not here. Nobody lines up outside with machine guns like they did in Pakistan on motorcycles and shoot people as they came out and then drive off. That didn't happen. We're not persecuted. Now, do we get irked? Yes, okay. It doesn't say blessed are the irked. It said blessed are the persecuted. When people revile you and are the persecuted for righteousness' sake. See, for righteousness' sake. Most time we want to be say we're persecuted, but not for righteousness' sake. We want to be persecuted because we are who we are and we think somebody else doesn't like us. And we claim that. But Jesus is saying only, well, there's a disciple Bible study. There's a section on Luke, at least in the old one, the one I like. They changed it and I didn't like it as much. But in the old one, because I'm a dinosaur, so in the old one, they had a chapter on Luke that was called The Least, the Last, and the Lost. Now, you can be persecuted if you stand up for the least and the last and the lost and somebody attacks you. But not because you're standing up for yourself. It's when you love your neighbor and you're standing up for your neighbor. That's when we might actually get past irked and a little toward being persecuted, but we're not really persecuted. See, our role is not standing up and saying, well, they need to get, I got my rights, I got my privileges, and that's, let me tell you, when they try to take that away, they're going to pry it from my, well, whatever. That's not being persecuted. Persecuted is when I stand up for someone who has no one else standing for them and say, I'm standing with this person. And I'm standing right beside them regardless of the cost. That's where that comes in. So we have to ask ourselves about this passage is once we get past our own particular, well, I'm me and people don't like me, and it's all right if they don't like me because they may not like the way I am, but I am the way Jesus made me, and that's their problem, not mine. That's not what Jesus is talking about. Jesus is talking about when we do the right thing for the right reason for the right people, the marginalized. Read the prophets of the Old Testament. They'll talk about the widows and the orphans, the people who are most vulnerable in society. That's the ones that God has always had a heart for. It's not that God doesn't always love us too. God does love us, but God says, look, you got resources. They don't got resources. Help them. Do something for them. And if you do and people judge you harshly, then that's being persecuted for doing the right thing. I'm sorry, I'm preaching now. I'm supposed to be Bible study and eyes, and so then 11, which is a reiteration. Blessed are people when people revile you and persecute you and utter all kinds of evil against you falsely. In other words, if they tell the truth about you, folks, or if they tell the truth about you, Robin, it's not persecution. If they say, well, let me tell you, Robin wrote this email once, and let me tell you, that was not a nice email. I can't be persecuted for that email. I wrote it. I have to own that. But if they utter against you falsely on my account, on Jesus' account, rejoice and be glad, for your reward is great in heaven, for in the same way they persecuted the prophets who were before you. It was no different in the prophets of the Old Testament than it is now. Prophets of the Old Testament stood up for the weak and the vulnerable and said, this is what God says, and you need to hear that. And the powers that be said, we decide who we're going to support and who we're not. And we've decided not to support them. they're dispensable. And Jesus says, I want you, if people criticize you because you stand up for those persons, I want you to rejoice. I want you to sing a psalm, sing a hymn, smile, say thank you. Don't get all bent out of shape because they say these things about you. Feel that you're blessed. You're being accounted with Christ at that moment. Is there anything better, any kind of honor greater than being accounted with Christ? What a great joy, what a wonderful thing that people decide that, well, you're acting like Jesus. Now, they won't actually say that because, unfortunately, they have rewritten Jesus. But if you read Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, they're acting like Jesus. Let us be ones who act like Jesus. And so let us rejoice and be glad. There is a reward. It may not be here. The reward is also there's a person over there that knows they've been stood up for. There's a child that can be safe tonight because somebody stood up. There's a person hurting who won't be lonely because somebody stood up. There's an abused spouse or an abused elderly person who will feel safe because somebody stood up. Those are the people that Jesus pointed us toward. And Jesus said, I want you to invite you to be my arms and legs. I want to invite you to have the resources to do things about that. I don't give you resources so that you can have a bigger TV than anybody else. I give us resources so that you will have the opportunity to help someone who is in need. And I'll close with this. And I know somebody always says on that, they always say, well, I know what he says. They won't say it out loud now because it's not the right moment. But truth of the matter is, I've earned everything I got. Nobody gave me anything. I know. But let me tell you, you weren't born in Zaire. You weren't born in Ethiopia. You weren't born in the slums of Jerusalem. So before you tell me you had no privilege, you may grew up poor. I grew up poor. Kathy grew up poorer than I did. Kathy didn't have inside plumbing till she was in the 5th grade. They had an outhouse. They ended up with a very nice brick ranch house, but she grew up poor. But she grew up poor with a full, complete family where there was love and safety and security, where there was a belief in education, where there was support from the community. And because of that, she and I have been incredibly blessed. I grew up a little bit poor, but not like she did. So let us, yes, work hard, but let's recognize how blessed we are. Let us be people that are merciful and people with a pure heart, people that are peacemakers, people that don't persecute. And if we are persecuted, let it be for the right reasons. Let us pray. Lord, thank you for your word. Lord, I know I've overstated the case a little bit. I've warped it a little bit, and I apologize. Lord, forgive me. Help make this right in their hearts. Fix it where I've messed it up, Lord, in their hearts. Because I really, 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 truly love your words in the Beatitudes. They truly are a part of the mantra of my life. Help me to live them out. Help us all to live them out. Lord, I thank you for these, my sisters and brothers in Christ, and for this incredible opportunity we have to be together. It's a gift from you, and I'm so thankful for it. It's only a short time, but we're going to make the most of it. Tell some old stories, create some new stories, and we're glad that you are with us, Lord. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, thank you all very much for coming. The Lord bless you and be with you. Forgive my shortcomings. I'm not used to working like this anymore. Okay, I'm going to say it. It's probably over the air, but I don't know when this turns off or how it turns off. So for those of you listening, have a nice evening. Amen. I'm walking away now.